The Honourable Member for Ancaster Dundas Flamborough Westdale.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to speak again in the House regarding Bill C-384, an act to amend the Criminal Code, which is more commonly known for the issue it tackles, euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide. There's no question that the circumstances, pain and emotions surrounding one's desire to even consider euthanasia and assisted suicide are difficult and complex, made all the more poignant by the personal experiences that frame our diverse perspectives. I must say from the outset that while I fundamentally disagree with this bill, I respect every member of the House and every Canadian who advocates for or against the bill. That's because the circumstances that would bring anyone to contemplate medically assisted suicide, whether it be for themselves or a loved one, are very deep, very emotional, and very difficult personal decisions. Madam Speaker, throughout this debate, we've heard, and I'm certain that we'll hear many more stories. Each is different and relevant, and I don't know if we can ever truly appreciate these until we walk in that particular person's shoes. But please allow me to add my own as well. My mother passed away from a debilitating autoimmune disease called scleroderma. Unfortunately, even up till today, not a lot is known about this disease. When death occurs, as was the case with my mother, it's from organ complications after many years of suffering and pain, dying from the inside out. Her internal vital organs become like stones. Her skin became as fragile as parchment. There were days at the end of her life, I would suspect, although, Madam Speaker, she never spoke to me about it, she would rather not have lived. Days that we, as her family, would rather not have seen her suffer. But as heart-wrenching as it was, she found a modicum of serenity in acceptance, and we comforted her as best as we possibly could right up to the end. And my family was blessed by discovering two great champions, my younger sister Connie Hayes and my older sister Suzanne Bryant, who were there day in and day out to care for my mother and bring the family even closer together through this tragic, painful ordeal. I think we can all agree with the overall objective of ensuring that people with terminal or severe illness suffer less. However, I don't believe that Bill C-384 is the answer. In fact, I've stated before in this place that, in my opinion, C-384 is irresponsible. And frankly, Madam Speaker, I'm convinced it's diametrically opposed to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that gives individual Canadians the right of life, liberty, and the security of person. I'm deeply concerned that Bill C-384 would allow anyone to request medical assistance with suicide or euthanasia without sufficient oversight or regulation. Clearly, no one is going to make that kind of decision lightly, but nor should it be so readily accessible that an irreversible decision can be made too hastily or out of pain or emotion or guilt that someone would be a burden to others. Madam Speaker, the flaws with this bill are not with its call to compassion or its appeal for dignity near life's natural end, but with the unintended and, I believe, unmanageable consequences. Moreover, Madam Speaker, I believe we as parliamentarians have a duty and moral obligation to uphold the value of life. What kind of precedence does this set? At what point on this slippery slope do we stop? Is that really for us to decide? And I'd like to just quote from a Globe and Mail article from yesterday, written by Margaret Somerville, who's the founding director of the Centre of Medicine, Ethics and Law at McGill University. And I quote, "Indeed, one of the people responsible for shepherding through the legislation legalizing euthanasia in the Netherlands recently admitted publicly that doing so had been a serious mistake because he said once legalized, euthanasia cannot be controlled. In other words, justifications for it to expand greatly, even to the extent that simply a personal preference to be dead will suffice." Madam Speaker, also I'm worried that Bill C-384 signals a devaluing of life, and I believe that's heading in a vastly wrong direction. Madam Speaker, these are my views, my personal emotional views and reasons, but they're also the reasons for many hundreds of constituents that have called and written and emailed my office. That's why I'd like to supplement it by referring to some of the work done by committees and commissions over the years related to this specific topic. I hope they help illustrate and amplify my point that we're treading down, yes, a very serious slope, Madam Speaker. Consider this paragraph, which I'll cite from the 1982 report by the Law Reform Commission of Canada on this topic that my colleague referred to earlier. There is, first of all, a real danger that the procedure developed to allow the death of those who are a burden to themselves may be gradually diverted from its original purpose and eventually used to eliminate those who are a burden to others or to society. There is also a constant danger that the subject's consent to euthanasia may not really be a perfectly free and voluntary act. So in addition to the lack of oversight in this bill, what's also troubling is the lack of precise language. Madam Speaker, I have a copy of this bill here in front of me. The actual text is only 3 pages long in both official languages. Hardly anything that would tackle something as serious as bringing about medically assisted death. The bill before us allows for physician-assisted suicide and euthanasia if the subject appears to be lucid and is in severe physical or mental pain. Yet there's no definition of what constitutes severe pain or mental pain. I would hate to see an elderly or ill or disabled Canadian feeling that they are a burden to their caregivers or to society request assisted suicide using severe mental pain as a reason. In tandem with our duty to uphold the value of life, I also believe we must support quality palliative care and end-of-life care for Canadians so that they will not ever have to think that euthanasia or assisted suicide is the only relief for their suffering or to feel that they would be relieving a burden on their family by taking that path. Madam Speaker, our ultimate goal ought to be to help ensure Canadians can live life well to its very natural end. And with the aging of the baby boomers, this is an increasingly important issue. A study of palliative care conducted by a Senate subcommittee in the year 2000 tabled a thoughtful report called Quality End-of-Life Care, the Right of Every Canadian. The report recommended collaborative development of a strategy to improve palliative and end-of-life care with attention to issues such as support to family caregivers, access to home care, training and education, research, and surveillance. Since then, Health Canada has been working to develop a pan-Canadian strategy for palliative and end-of-life care. While much remains to be done, Madam Speaker, I believe this can help deal with the very real physical, psychological, spiritual, and practical needs of a person who is dying and their loved ones. As we discuss and debate and consider Bill C-384, let's not forget that what we can do in these areas of health care to help Canadian families from coast to coast. Let's recognize the work being done by those in the hospice care, those doctors and nurses, and also, Madam Speaker, let's recognize what's being done by great Canadians in the communities in which we live. Right in Hamilton, we had ordinary Canadians who felt that this was such a concern for them to give quality care, end-of-life care to the people of Hamilton that they raised $3 million and built the Dr. Bob Kemp Hospice to make sure that there was hospice care available to people in need. Madam Speaker, we're faced today with a problem that continues to challenge our society. The pitfalls are many, and the answers are far from clear. In view of this, I would urge members to reject Bill C-384 and signal to all Canadians that we hold life as sacred and do not find the intentional taking of life acceptable whatsoever. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.